What's up, and welcome back to Funds on Fire, where we unpack the psychology, structure, and strategy of launching, managing, and raising capital for investment funds and interviewing other fund managers. Now, there are episodes that give you tactics, and then there are episodes that flip how you see the whole game. This is one of those. Today, I'm sitting down with Ian Ross, founder of Vivid Selling, and probably one of the most precise minds in the world of sales psychology I've ever talked to. Ian doesn't just teach sales, he teaches self-persuasion. He teaches how to communicate in a way where your investors, your buyers, your team members, they feel like it was their idea. And if you're raising capital, that's the game, because raising capital is sales, period. Raising capital without understanding sales is like trying to do brain surgery with a butter knife. But here's what most people get wrong. They think sales means pressure, manipulation, sleazy tactics, not the way Ian teaches it. He walks us through the exact Vivid framework, a simple, powerful process to lead investors to action without pressure or resistance. And here's the truth. If you're serious about raising capital and building a fund, you have two options. Keep winging it and hope for soft commitments, or build a fund that raises capital on autopilot because your system, your messaging, and your investor experience is dialed all the way in. And if that second option sounds like what you want, then that's exactly what we help you do inside Fund Founders. Fund Founders is our flagship program, an ecosystem where we help you to launch and structure your fund without full legal support, build an automated investor pipeline using our AI-powered CRM, learn how to raise capital the right way with compliance, confidence, and clarity, and most importantly, surround yourself with other fund managers who are actually raising money, deploying capital, and doing deals. If you're listening to Ian talk about the psychology of influence and thinking, you're exactly who we built Fund Founders for. And if you're past the basics and ready to scale to serious capital, we've got our higher level mastermind, the Founder Circle, where we go deep with private coaching, fund docs done for you, advanced sales automation, and help you raise your first or even next $1 million. This isn't another course. It's a complete fund launch ecosystem backed by a community, coaching, and compliance. So if you're ready to stop guessing and start raising, head to wearefundfounders.com/apply and join us. Now, back to this episode, because this episode is packed. You're going to learn why resistance in sales, why people typically push back, is because people are feeling pushed, ignored, or misunderstood. You're going to learn how to create investor urgency without sounding desperate, the exact 5-step Vivid framework Ian teaches to turn interest into action, and why he believes sales done right is a noble pursuit. And look, if you've ever felt that lump in your throat before a pitch call, or wonder why someone ghosted you after saying, yeah, I'm interested, or felt like your offer was amazing, but no one's wiring money, this episode will be like oxygen to you. So take notes, rewind it, send it to your team, because how you communicate is your edge in the capital game. So let's get into it. Here's my conversation with Ian Ross of Vivid Selling. Welcome to Funds on Fire, the podcast that ignites the passion of investment funds and capital raising. Here we turn the complexities of fund management into clear, actionable steps that drive results. I've invested into diverse real estate across the United States and managed thriving funds, and I'm committed to transforming lives through the vehicle of investment funds and helping others to do the same. Join me as we document the journey of scaling businesses, raising capital, and impacting tens of thousands of people around the world. My name is Devin Robinson, and welcome to Funds on Fire. All right, welcome everybody to another episode of Funds on Fire. Today, I'm excited because we're switching it up a little bit today, and what we're really going to focus on today is going to be talking about the psychological and the sales aspect of capital raising, talking to investors, helping to raise capital, or helping you to raise capital, and then engaging those investors with our opportunities to be able to raise from them. And so today, I've got a special guest. I would say, like, we've become pretty decent friends. You know, like, I hesitate to be like, oh, good friend, good friend. Everybody wants to say they're a good friend. But I don't know. I thoroughly enjoy my time with you, Ian, even from like, us hanging out at that random conference, which was like one of the first times we ever really met, to having a phone call with you a couple of days ago, man. I enjoy getting to know you. I appreciate who you are and what you do for our industry. You serve specifically, different industries, but I know you pretty well in the context of real estate. And then I'm just always impressed by the next level of thinking and the deeper conversation that you and I typically have, because we're not really big on the small talk, even though it's kind of sometimes our job to small talk. But I'm thankful that you're here. I'm excited. I don't know, probably the goat of sales. Let's just go with that.
Sure.
We'll just go with that. Sales go. We're just gonna go to sales go. Ian, tell people like who you are, what you do, and I'm excited to kind of engage and talk about the conversation on capital raising. But what are you mostly and primarily focused on right now?
I am a sales trainer, and by extension of that, though they are kind of the same thing, they're not exactly, also kind of a sales coach. And
Okay.
but what I'm most interested in and what I'm most known for, I think, outside of the context of like training salespeople, is I am interested in the psychology behind getting people to take action. And
Mm,
most importantly, getting people to take action where it feels like their idea. That is powerful in the context of making a sale, is powerful in the context of leadership, of leading a team, and it's powerful in raising capital. Fundamentally, it's human communication and the psychology behind that so that you can have conversations where you get people to believe in whatever it is you were trying to get them to take action on, and they have the resolve as if it was their idea and you just got out of the way. That is what I'm known for, and that's what I'm obsessed with.
that's good because that's important, especially when you're asking for like hundreds of thousands of dollars. You want it
Yeah.
to feel like you're not being pushy. And that's actually a little bit of a question I had for a little bit later, because I think it's important to for people to understand to create an investor urgency without feeling a sense of pressure, right? A lot of new capital raisers come off almost desperate. How do you create urgency and excitement for your deal while maintaining like a posture of confidence and not making sure that you're not like full on sales breath with people, you know? Like, I think that's important.
The biggest thing is to make sure what you don't do. So
Mm,
resistance from whatever it is you are trying to get them to take action on tends to come from three main places, assuming that they are the right fit. They might not be the right fit, and that's a sifting and sorting thing, and
mhm,
that can come up separately from that. But assuming you are talking to someone who is qualified and the right fit for you, resistance will come from them either feeling pushed, ignored, or misunderstood.
mm,
If they feel like you are pushing them to do something, like it's not their idea and at their pace, but they feel pushed, they will have resistance. If they feel ignored, if they're trying to tell you what is important to them and you don't address it, you don't leave space for it, you don't validate the emotion, the hesitancy, the concern, they will have resistance. Or if you offer something that is not aligned with what they're interested in, they will feel misunderstood. If someone's like, I can't wait to get into a convertible, and you push them to an F-150, they will feel like you weren't listening in the first place. It's an aspect of being ignored, but ultimately it transcends beyond that because you can say everything that seems like you are not ignoring them. But if the end result means you try and guide them towards something that is not aligned, they will feel like you didn't understand them in the first place.
mm.
So we want to avoid those sensations. How you can build real urgency for raising capital is an emphasis on things that are fundamentally true, which is I'm having as many conversations as I possibly can to raise as much capital as I can. And I can't always guarantee the same level of return when we're at different levels of capital raising. I'm not pressuring you to make a decision, but if you come in with even more money later, I can't even guarantee that same level of return. Caution around using the word guarantee. I can't even talk about that same level of return or exactly we have to offer will be the exact same thing for you because things will change as we take on more capital. So I can only talk about what we can do right now and what we can do for you.
Oh, that's
This might
good,
change in
man.
the future. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. And I think that's important too because there is a sense of urgency. We've got deals that need to be funded, and there's typically a timeline on it. We're raising capital for the next 6 months to a year for this deal that the bank is waiting for us to put our money into. And so it's cool. That's really cool. Okay, now I actually want to like go back a little bit.
Sure.
I want to know how Ross Ian Ross, became Vivid Selling. Because I think like I know very little of you. You're past, right? You're like a dark horse. You came. I feel like you came out. I know Steve Trang. I know him pretty well. And then all of a sudden it was like, yo, here's Ian, and Ian's better than Steve. Now that's all subjective, of course, but like,
It's
oh
not.
my.
It's objectively measured.
Oh, okay,
It's measured
perfect.
objectively.
That's right.
Both
There.
there's a closing rate and results of clients, but whatever.
And
Objectivity
Ian,
is what
yeah,
is what.
and Ian is better than Mr. Sales Disruptor himself. Where the heck did this guy come from? Ian, so I'd love to hear just a little bit more about your past because, like, I think, I do a little research for these podcasts, and I think you were like a manager of a bookstore at one point.
Mhm,
And
sure
so I'm
was.
just like, okay, how do you become like from going from managing a bookstore to, I think at one point too, just because of research, right? I don't, from, and because from what I've heard from you and podcasts and things like that, to earning $500,000 a year in sales commissions, which is right? I think that's true. Like, so you go from managing to a sales monster. Like, what internal shifts or lessons from that journey show up on like how you do sales today? But that's just a question that we could get to. I want to hear a little bit more about like who you are and how do you, how is Mr. Ian Ross, Mr. Ian Ross?
So before my first commission only sales role was in life insurance.
Okay.
Um, Before that, I was managing bookstores in New York City, and before that, managing bookstores in Boston, or was working in bookstores in Boston. Wasn't even managing. So I wanted to be a writer when I was younger, and bookstores were a great place to do that. And I got hired at the first bookstore because I was hanging out at the bookstore all the time, talking to the owner, a small little indie bookstore, new and used. And I knew the inventory very well, and I loved the bookstore. And people would come in asking for recommendations, and the owner would just go talk to Ian. I wasn't even working there. And I was inspired by a friend of mine who sold these fancy hot dogs in New York City. So these hot dogs all had names that didn't really explain what the ingredients were. You know, they'd be play like the Betty Boop or like the fancy janitor, and you're like, What's in this? What?" They're
Sure.
like $14. What am I supposed to get for it?"
Yeah.
And my friend, who's an incredibly charismatic actor and now also a salesperson, uh, but while he was working at that store, people would come in, and he had a very different approach for how he talked to people. He would say things like, and he's selling hot dogs, by the way. He would say, how's your day been today? What's your day been like?"
Mm.
Like, kind of a crummy day." "Okay, crummy day. How are you with, like, spicy? You like spicy? Okay with spicy? Love spicy?" He's like, "No, I love spicy. The spicier the better." "Okay, lactose intolerant, or you're okay? There's some little bit of dairy. Are you like, no, cheese and spice is my thing. Tough day, cheese and spice. It's gonna be $22. Sit down, I got you." And he got tipped like crazy in giving people these recommendations by asking unconventional questions. It felt unique. It was a unique
Mm.
experience. And so when I was at a bookstore, especially later and I got hired, I would go in, the owner of the store would challenge me to sell a certain book that was, like, obscure and weird and no one was selling by the end of the weekend. And so what I would do is people were like, and the reason people walk into bookstores, at least then, things were already cheaper on Amazon. So to even come into a bookstore, there's this aspect of wanting the interaction, wanting the recommendation, wanting the like, what's good? What do you like? Because it's already cheaper on Amazon. So to pay that premium, you want the interactivity and the hands-on approach. And so when people would come in asking for recommendations, I would say, "How has your day been today? Like, what did you read last that you loved? And what did you love about it? Did you read anything that you disliked? What did you dislike about it? Okay. Are you looking for something more of the same in that same genre, but, like, expanding out a little bit more? Do you want, like, to feel like you're scratching that same itch, or are you trying a new flavor of ice cream?" I would do that, and then I would come and hand them 2 books and say, "Read the back of each of these and the first page and tell me which one you wanna walk home with," and I'd walk away. And I got incredible amounts of sales. I wasn't paid commission on that, but I was always selling books, and the way I would get that book sold that I was challenged is I would just include that in the 2.
Yeah.
Just that they would pick it one at a time, or sometimes they'd leave with both. So,
Huh.
that was an aspect of I wasn't paid more. It's a retail role. I'm paid hourly, and managers in New York is tough because you're barely surviving, right? Like, you have this aspect of authority over other people. You feel kinda cool, but, like, you can barely afford to eat, let alone, make the type of money you're making in a sales role. But I transitioned it out of that into life insurance and brought with me that same approach,
Huh.
which is how can I customize the experience so it feels like something unique conversationally rather than reading off a menu. And I've brought that at all times and have added new layers over time as I've gotten better and changed my beliefs and changed how I've done things. But that was the initial orientation. And the reason I got hired in life insurance was not because I wanted to do life insurance. Initially wanted to be a tech evangelist. So that's the role of someone standing on I wanted to be the next Steve Jobs, not in terms of ownership, but in terms of introducing the world to the next iPhone. I wanted to
Yeah.
speak from stage. That's why I'm trying to push for more speaking engagements now, because that was always the dream of use our tech product and look how amazing it is, and talking to nerdy developers and getting them excited about a product. And I thought, okay, I'm not good enough algorithmically to get hired into the software role. And I
Sure.
tried that first. Let's get some sales experience and leverage that to a tech sales role. And then from there, I can end up doing that. So the joke in insurance is if you can breathe onto a mirror and it fogs up, they'll hire you because they'll hire anyone, right?
Yep.
Like if you're a warm body, can you
True.
pass the exam? They'll hire you. They do that because most people sell their friends and family first because they're not good salespeople. So you'll get some sales. Did not sell any friends and family. I refused to. I only wanted to cut my teeth on leads. But that's why I started in life insurance. And I did it for a relatively short period of time before leveraging that into solar. And solar is when I got good. Solar is when I got like really, really good. And then from there, I got hired in a tech sales role and was like on the path to doing exactly what I wanted to do. But I realized uh, Steve will call me unmanageable. I'm not meant to be a W-2 employee. I refuse to be told what to do. Kind of have a little bit of a, you don't get to tell me what to do. I will break these golden handcuffs and risk it all to be able to have an aspect of entrepreneurship autonomy. And that's what I did. Started a virtual wholesaling company. And after I'd paid Steve the cost of a car to mentor me, I noticed at an event
Typically,
that
those.
the people I had hired to set appointments for me were getting the same appointment flow in a day that the service Steve was using was getting in a month per rep. And it was because I trained them specifically myself.
Yeah.
Gave 'em a script and there was tonality included in it, and that's when we started to be like, "Okay, maybe we can do something." And so when the market shifted, I had scaled too quickly for the money I had coming in, and I was like, "I might have to go back." I told Steve, "I might have to go back and get another cushy tech sales job to help support this." Excuse me. And he said, "I need you to come work for me. Let's figure some out. Let's buy out, have you come in, get your VAs. Let's figure something out."
Mm.
So that was the initial transition into this. I have been obsessed with sales, like obsessed with it since 2020. And other people might have done sales longer. They might do a lot of stuff, but the way I take notes on what I did, listen to my calls, like I joke, my wife has to listen to me have sales calls. I'm listening to it for the third time in the car on like a car trip. She's like, "You've already heard this. You get the sale." I was like, "Yeah, I know, but there's a part where there's a disconnect and I need to hear it again."
Mm.
I am obsessed with, it's not even sales, honestly. I say I'm obsessed with sales. Realistically, I'm obsessed with persuasion. I'm obsessed with getting people to take action. I'm obsessed with human behavior, what inspires human behavior and what has people have conviction for a belief and idea, even if it's misinformed. Like, how
Yeah.
can you actually do that at scale and on the micro level of just talking to someone else in your same, inside your same organization? What is it that causes people to feel like they want to take action on things? That is my obsession. Sales is just the ultimate vehicle for that because as you get better at it, you make more money. So it's a representation of that idea.
Yeah, that's really good, man. Now, I've heard you. One, I love the fact that it's always cool when I hear people's stories and we hear what people have done in their life and how that thread has weaved into who they are today. Just even the way that you engaged people from, or you heard that guy engage people at the hot dog cart, to how you engage people at the bookstore, to how you engage people in conversation now, where there's this quote that says, leadership is taking people where you want them to go for reasons that they don't know. And so there's this idea of like when you do that for when sales, you're taking people places that you want them to go in ways and reasons that they don't even know until they finally get there. And so it's really cool for that. And I've heard you say that sales is a noble pursuit. And you don't often hear people associate those two things together. What makes you believe that? Like, why do you believe sales is a noble pursuit? And then how does that philosophy shape one, how you train others and how you lead your organization and those things?
I've not been asked this question before. I love this question, Devin. I think salespeople are, we're the athletes of the business world.
Mm.
Our performance matters. We drive the economy. Things don't move unless, at least not at high price points, until someone talks to someone. And if you are selling a good product, you're helping someone. So I wanna differentiate from the sort of sleazy car salesman vibe of selling something that people don't want or need, and
Mm.
instead figuring out where the problem is and then helping that person take action to solve that problem.
Yeah.
To me, sales is realistically closer to change work. I'm doing more stuff around what Tony Robbins does than I actually think about what Andy Elliott does. I'm not
Very
forcing
different
people to
people.
take action on stuff.
Yeah.
I'm getting people to get out of their own way to finally solve their problem. If you are, if the salesperson is selling something that's not good, we have someone on our team who, like, his first week here, he brought up, "Man, it's nice to sell something that actually helps people," because he was selling something before
Yeah.
that just wasn't. It was not a good product, and he, to actually have the internal conviction that you can help someone in and make money at the same time, there's an aspect of that that's outside of the control of the salesperson, but I would always encourage any salesperson to sell something they believe in. Not because you just need the conviction, just because If you're at a company that's not selling something good or just over promising, doing people wrong, one of two things will inevitably happen because sales is a representation of self-improvement and personal development. Because as you get better, you see your bank account go up. With
Yep.
business, it's not the same.
That's
Just
true.
as you get better, you actually might see your bank account go down because you're in a different season with business. Like now I'm less profitable. I'm hiring. We're switching marketing channel. Like we're doing all these different things where it takes a longer time horizon to see the benefits. In sales, it's far more immediate. You see the benefits much quicker. And so that's why I love it as a representation of getting better as a person and getting better at what you do. You make more money at the same time because your bank account goes up as you get better. I love that idea. But if you are selling something or working for a company that's doing people wrong, one of two things will happen. You will either not get as good as you could get because you know you're doing people wrong. And it feels you won't do that extra push. You won't get better. You won't study on the weekend because you don't feel good selling it. Or your moral compass will erode over time.
Mm.
And chances are it's probably a bit of both.
Yeah.
Probably both. So the salesperson has the responsibility to make sure they believe in what they're selling. And then once they are in that vehicle, then they can drive that all the way to the end. So sales is a noble pursuit. You're helping people solve problems. You're not selling something that people don't want, at least not the way I train it. And you're getting people to get out of their own way. So many people and businesses, whether you're B2B, could use a thing. They could use what you have to offer. It could be a benefit to them. Either it's better than what they're currently using or they have a mistake that they're not using at all. Like for us, we're selling sales training. I believe in our sales training so deeply. Businesses that use our sales training get better results. I consider it my responsibility to not burn the competitor or something, but at least give the prospect, my potential lead, the chance to see how good our stuff is so they can actually make more money with it rather than using some alternative.
Yeah.
And because I believe that so fully, it is a noble pursuit to be following up, to be top of mind, to be asking the additional impact question, to be asking the personal question. It's a noble pursuit, and you get better as your bank account goes up, and your bank account goes up as you get better. It becomes this ladder up and up if you are on a good product. If you're selling garbage like if you're selling ice to Eskimos is the old joke, like
Yeah.
then you're not a salesperson in my mind. You're a con man.
Mm.
Real salespeople don't sell something that people don't want or need. So to me, and I think that's a Zig Ziglar quote, which is like the people who says I can sell anything to anyone aren't salespeople. They're con men because
Mhm.
anything to anyone implies selling something that people don't want or need, and that's not what salespeople do. So as
That's
long as you're fitting within those parameters, it is a noble pursuit.
Yeah, that's good. That's like the whole like, "Sell me this pen," and it's like, "Do you even need the pen?"
And they're
Or
like,
the
no.
like,
It's like, well, why would I sell you a
"Why would I
pen? You
sell it
don't
to
want
you?"
it.
Yeah,
You don't need
exactly.
it. You don't want it.
It's
Now,
interesting now. Go ahead.
to be fair with the sell me the pen, sometimes, and this is a example of an extension, I should say, of the principles taught by gap selling,
Okay.
which is I think is a fantastic book, and I've expanded on it a little bit, but it's inspired a certain aspect of my own selling process, which is sometimes the prospect can have an issue
That's right.
that
And
they
get
are
the
not
solution.
even aware of. And it's our responsibility to at least make them aware of that issue and then see if they have interest. So it might be, hey, I just have to ask, how often are you using a pen? What are you using it for? Oh, you're signing big land deals with multi-millions of dollars? Is there a chance that having a cheap pen could hurt your credibility versus having a good one? If you're thinking about every little moment for different avatars, could you handing over someone an expensive heavy pen and having that weight, could that be a benefit to the emotional experience to people who are signing big documents versus handing them a cheap one? And if it could, is that worth investing in? And they might not be openly aware of it. So sometimes we have to figure out. Now, if they go, no, only do DocuSign, I don't need a pen. Well, then it doesn't work. But assuming that there is a problem, sometimes the salesperson has to go deeper to determine if there's an issue there.
Yeah, that's good. And you were talking about the noble pursuit of sales, and not just because one of how it can be beneficial for people, but like the deep belief in the validity of what you're doing and the deep belief in your product. It reminds me of this time where I read, and regardless of how you think about him or anybody thinks about him, Grant Cardone's book. I think it was like 10x rules, or I can't remember which one it was, but he said this thing, and I was like, wow, this is pretty profound. Where he says, "Oh, if you're a business person, you, and like he goes, okay, I ask people, are you a good business person? They say yes. And they go, are you an ethical business person? And they say yes. Like, of course I'm ethical. I'm a good person. I take care of people. I serve people well. I try not to scam people. I do this stuff. I'm an ethical business person. And then he says, well, if you believe so deeply in your product, is it not the most ethical thing that you could do is to pursue that person until they get that product if you think that that is the best thing for them? And I thought, wow, that's really good. If you believe so deeply in your product, it is the most ethical thing you could do to pursue them until they either say like, leave me alone, I do not want your product, but even then you continue, or until they finally get your product because you believe it's the best thing for them. And so it's one of those things where like it is your noble pursuit if you believe your product is so good that it could benefit this person's life or add that level of value that they need. And so I see those two things where I'm like, yes, it is an ethical and noble pursuit if you believe your product is that good.
I actually think I have a moral responsibility to make sure I do everything in my power to try and get someone on board. Now, I'm not that doesn't mean do things that I don't believe in or wouldn't like stand by. Wouldn't want to shout from the rooftops that I do. Like the big principle for me, whether you believe in a higher power or whether you don't, whatever, how I operate is Steve does the same thing. I just view I have to answer every action I do to my mom. My mom's watching me do every single thing. So I got to tell her, hey, I sold that guy for that reason. And I just have to believe that it has an immediacy to me to justify my daily actions to my mom, or now that I have kids, and imagine explaining to my kids are not yet teenagers, they're very little, but imagine explaining to, I'm 15, 16-year-old boys of like, this is why I did that, and having that have an impact on them. I just operate that way at all times. And so I would never, if someone's like, hey, I hate you, don't keep following up. To me, I would go, man, I messed up here. How can I make sure I don't give someone that experience again in the future? Because this person will never sign with me. But ultimately, it's my duty, it's my moral responsibility to try and get someone on board. It's not to do it in a way that's sleazy or that I wouldn't feel confident with eyeballs on me doing. But ultimately, I'm trying to solve problems, and I believe in it enough that it is moral of me to do everything within my power to try and help you.
Yeah, that's good, man. Now, I want to go ahead and like set the foundation of what we kind of will talk about today as far as sales are concerned. So I remember you and I were sitting at this conference and we were talking about sales as one does. And as we were
Me
talking,
wherever I am, by the way. I could
yeah,
be at the barber shop. I'm having a nice conversation with
talking
people.
about it.
Yeah.
What's actually funny, man, I actually think the two greatest, like hands down, not even close, can't hold a candle to it. The two greatest skills you can have in business, like it is so far. These two are so far ahead of every other skill that it's not even close. The two greatest skills you can have are sales and capital raising. Because if you want to grow as you want to grow a company, I actually think all the pinnacle of every business is a fund of some sort, right? If you think of like what happens when you grow a really big business, you either roll it into private equity or you do something like that. What happens if you're really good at real estate? You roll it into a real estate fund. What happens if you're really good at stocks or bonds? You start a hedge fund, right? Like the pinnacle of these things is being able to raise capital and leverage to start some sort of fund. That is like, I guess, and when I say pinnacle, that is somewhat subjective, but objectively, the top of the mountain is a fund
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
in
That makes
in
sense.
like in business in period. So I think the only way you get to the top of the mountain is if you have the ability to raise capital. And then second, the only way to really raise capital well or even sell your product is the ability to sell. And so as we set the framework for the continuation of the conversation, I remember you and I sitting at this conference and you were explaining to me that Vivid isn't just like, oh, I see clearly that's what people know me as, like Vivid Ian, Vivid Selling, but it's actually a framework that you have that helps you to remember, or actually an acronym that helps you to remember a framework of sales that can be very much so applied to capital raising. So I'd love to know, like, what is Vivid, and then like we'll kind of continue the conversation from there.
Sure. Yeah. And so much so can it be used for capital raising that we hired someone who has raised, last I spoke to him, which was a while ago now, he raised over $1 million using my framework in private conversations.
Nice,
So I'm
perfect.
sure, shout out to Mark Camarillo. I'm sure he's raised even more now. It's been a while since I've checked in with him. But the vivid selling framework.
Before we continue, I wanted to tell you about something that's been an absolute game changer for fund managers and capital raisers just in general. If you're trying to manage any investor relationships with spreadsheet and scattered emails, I want to introduce you to FundFlow OS, the intelligent capital management platform that's transforming how capital raisers raise and manage capital. FundFlow OS gives you everything you need in one powerful platform: investor CRM, automated deal pipelines, distribution tracking, document management, AI-powered tools that help you crush investor relationships, conversations, and close more deals. Whether you're raising your first fund or managing syndications or doing fix and flips or trying to raise capital to hold properties, FundFlow OS streamlines your entire workflow, track investors' commitments, automate follow-ups, generate professional reports, and even provide your investors with a branded portal to view their investments. Heck, if you're even lending, you also have a lending portal that you can have when you lend out your own money. Plus, the built-in AI tools, you can generate compelling fund summaries, craft persuasive emails, and get instant answers to complex investor questions. The best part? You can try everything completely free for 30 days. That's right, a full month to see how FundFlow OS can transform your capital raising process. Just visit funflowos.com/fire. That's FIRE. No credit card required. Stop managing investors like it's 2010 and step into the future of capital management with FundFlow OS. Go to funflowos.com/fire. That's FIRE and claim your 30-day free trial now. Now back to the show.
Vivid is an acronym. It's about asking the right questions in the right order, the right way to get someone to feel like it was their idea to take action. So for me, this is an internal mechanism. It doesn't work perfectly with a distressed seller conversation because the gain aspect can be a little confusing depending on the level of pain they're in and the urgency they have. But if you're selling a product that can make some more money, or raising capital where you're trying to get people to make money with their money, it works very, very well. So the acronym stands for the vision for where they want to go, identify the gap between where they are currently and where they want to go. I validate their hesitations and concerns at all times, but not necessarily agree with it. Then that's where I depart from Grant Cardone a little bit, and we can talk about that. And then I talk about the impact of doing nothing. I'm trying to make indecision, inaction the enemy, not the competitor, not something else. Literally doing nothing is the enemy. And finally, what would they like to decide to do? What's their decision? That's the flow. And so there's questions that fit within each aspect. So the vision is usually like, if you ever have a sales call with me, I know on this call, you'll experience the same type of thing usually, which is like, man, how much, like, assuming we're having this conversation a year from now and everything worked out exactly the way you're hoping it would, what does your business look like? What does your life look like? How much money are you making? How different is that from right now? I'm talking about, I'm getting all this like dopamine of envisioning a year of how, oh my gosh, I've hired this and I've hired that. Then we identify the gap. So the gap selling approach is that where I introduce that, which is like, what's holding you back from making a real attempt? Or like, why is that not working? What have you tried and why didn't it work? Like, what do you feel isn't working, or what you need to overcome right now so that a year from now you can have that? Because it sounds like there's a couple things you could already do, but you haven't done it yet. Ultimately trying to figure out what's stopping you. What is the hesitation? Validate, but not necessarily agree with, comes from this idea of that if I hear a hesitation, if I hear a concern, if I hear an obstacle or an objection, Grant Cardone says, always agree with them. Always agree. What he's right about is the sensation you give someone. So I view an objection as someone raising a shield. I don't like this. Let me talk to someone. This is concerning me. They're raising a shield from me running my process. And most sales training says when they raise a shield, hit that shield right away. Rebut the objection. If you don't knock it out of their hand, they dig in harder.
Yeah.
So I like to think about it as walking around the shield. And agreeing does do that, but it can make the mistake depending on what they say. If you agree with it, you might shoot yourself in the foot. So if you're selling Mercedes and someone's like, yeah, I hate Mercedes. And I'm like, I agree with you. Mercedes are terrible. How am I supposed to sell Mercedes?
Yeah.
Right? I just shot myself in the foot. If someone says Mercedes are terrible, now I've heard other people who've said that same thing. It's usually because maybe they had a bad experience with a certain model, or they knew some people who drove it and they didn't like that. What's making that come up for you now? That, like, it's validating the sensation, which is the same as agreeing without applying the value judgment to what the objection is. So I feel confident teaching that across the board. You can agree if it's necessary. If they're like, yeah, I don't like this one thing, and I actually know we don't have that one thing. I was like, yeah, I agree with you. That's no good because we don't have it. I just don't agree with the value of the objection, but I validate the sensations. And I do that at all times, whether it's at the start of the call or the end.
And it makes sense
It's never
because, like, if you and I don't mean to interrupt you, but it makes sense. Actually, I do mean to interrupt you. Sorry, I clearly did. But it really makes sense because, like, if I'm raising capital and somebody goes, I've invested into a fund like yours before, and I just don't know if I really like those. And so you go, okay, it sounds like you either dealt with somebody that honestly really betrayed you, betrayed some of your trust, or just something didn't go well. And so then you don't have to agree if they're like, I don't really like investing. I don't think investing in this is a smart deal. Then it's like, okay, well, it sounds like this. And so, sorry, I'm trying to contextualize it to even just the listeners, because I think what happens is we hear you say these things, but it's easy for me to disassociate it from what I'm doing or what I'm raising for. And so then you have that immediate application of like, okay, I may have an investor that has an objection, and here's the solution for that.
I will bring it back to capital raising right at the end because I trained someone who's literally using it for that
Nice,
exact same
perfect.
conversation.
Yeah, this is good.
I will for all of you who are like, yeah, but I'm not doing this. I'm not. How is this relevant to me? I promise I will show you how it's exactly relevant to you at the end. I just talk through the framework, through the principles, so you
Sorry,
can
sorry.
understand the
Continue.
concept,
I'm sorry. I
and then it
digress.
will apply.
Yeah.
The impact is usually the impact of doing nothing. We like to quantify the issue. Ultimately, any sale, any exchange of value, you need to create the feeling of a not a one-to-one exchange, but an insane upside possibility or a huge cost of doing nothing. You need to feel like it can't be like this. It needs to be like this in terms of doing nothing is down here and taking actions up here because there's always a risk component that something doesn't work out. For a fund, I mean, that's very obvious. What if the fund doesn't work out? What if the guy's lying to me? What if? That applies for everything. What if solar's a scam? What if the tax changes and the tax thing goes away? What if? So there's always a risk component. So you need to make an extreme imbalance to be able to overcome the risk part. And that the level of the imbalance will change depending on the avatar of the person you're talking to. Luckily for people raising capital, oftentimes the person you were talking to, if they have money, by the very nature of having money or investing in other things, has a lower risk tolerance than other people. Because to even be having done this in the past implies that you're willing to take risk to get gain. It's much harder for people who feel stuck in taking action on things because they're afraid of risk. That gets much harder, and you have to create a much more extreme imbalance. That would come up more if you're raising capital from your parents or friends and family. Then you might have to have an even more extreme distance because of the concern of the weight they put on risk. It's just like understanding how people make decisions. The more comfortable someone is, the less extreme the imbalance needs to be in their mind. Again, it's what's key is in their mind because you can show someone all the ways that this is going to work out for them, but they don't take action on it. And you feel crazy. You're like, dude, you're going to make I don't understand how someone would do this. It's guaranteed money. It's great. The numbers aren't what convincing people. It convinces people. It's the emotion, it's the story they tell themselves is what gets them to wanna do it. And so the numbers are just they're the sprinkles on the ice cream. No one goes to an ice cream store and just orders the sprinkles, okay?
Yep.
They want the ice cream and the sprinkles go on top. That's the way to think about it. It's like the numbers, the returns, the sheets, that is the sprinkles on the ice cream. People order the ice cream first, and that comes from the story that they tell themselves, that is rooted in emotion, in the feeling of the gain they're gonna get, and the pain of doing nothing if they didn't capitalize on this now. That's the idea of what you wanna sell. That's the impact part is like, what have you done that isn't working? And then finally, the way I ask for the decision is usually stacking it with variables. Like my closing questions all include variables based on what the person had told me. So in the capital raising instance, I can give you an example. So the vision for you, where you want to go, I'll talk you through it. There's like, there's 4 to 6 questions in each category, but if you just move through it very quickly off the top of my head, because I can do this for any industry, no matter the circumstance. Hey, like, what have you invested in the past? Okay, assuming you were to find a fund that made sense for you, that was like give you the exact return you wanted within reason for what your budget is, not pure unicorn, but actually finding something good. What would that look like? Okay, what are the ranges on that to make sure you can envision that? Okay, man, what level of return would that be getting you over maybe a year or longer term? Okay, I guess it sounds like you've invested in the past, or maybe you haven't even done that yet. What's the biggest thing stopping you from finding a fund to do that? Why haven't you invested in the company so far? What would you even need to see to feel like you could be confident putting your money somewhere where you could see that? Like I'm starting to you could feel the expectation building. man, I get why you feel that. If you've invested before and they just robbed you, like, it sounds like they completely lied to you. Like, what did they promise you? That's outrageous. Okay. But it sounds like you think all funds are the same no matter what. No matter what the person says, there's no differentiation. Okay, you're aware there's a difference. Well, could I even show you to demonstrate that difference? Are you so set on it, like, I'm too afraid to do anything, or is there something I could even demonstrate? Like, now I'm starting to figure out what the real problem is, and it's usually an emotional hesitation.
Yep.
It's like, yeah, testimonials, whatever, other people, like, that's just an extension of not having a belief in you, right? Especially with capital raising, there's usually 2 things they're not believing. 1, they don't believe you, or 2, they don't believe themselves. So some people, again, this don't believe themselves will happen more in private money raising with family and friends. Like, they just don't believe they are of the worth to put in $100,000 and get this much out. They just have some limiting belief there. That can happen. The other side of like, well, show me your returns. What are you doing? That's usually a don't believe in you. Understanding where the hesitation comes is really important because if you solve the wrong problem, and most people spend all their time talking about the don't believe in me thing. Sometimes it has nothing to do with that. That's just what they say because that's what they think they're supposed to say. Realistically, they don't believe they should get that return. Again, that's more prevalent with the private capital than institutional investors because they already have the belief. It's what they do.
Mhm.
And then ultimately transitioning into identifying the gap. Okay, if that's making you this much over the next year, like let's say we did that over 3 years, how different is that from your current setup? Okay, it's that much different. Okay, if we had that, if we could snap our fingers, we're 3 years from now, you just got that return and then end it back. How are you feeling in this moment? Was this a good investment? I'm making it in the present so you can feel the emotion there, not just how
Yeah,
will you feel. How are you feeling in this moment? The present tense is where people feel emotion. Present and past, people don't feel emotion in the future. It's a really key point. I'm always
that's good.
projecting
So
this into
shoot.
the future and
Yeah.
making it the present if I'm asking an emotional question. And then I could say, okay, you got that return. What up? Like, say you're not investing in me. What are you doing with that money? You guys going on a trip? You buying your dream beach house? What are you doing? I create that feeling. Okay.
Yeah.
And it sounds like that's what's holding you back. And that's costing you the dream beach house and trip in 3 years to do nothing, unless I'm missing something. I'm creating a pain in the impact, and that pain is associated with doing nothing. And then finally, in terms of asking for the decision, if we can make sure we're getting you X amount of return, you have everything in writing to make sure that if you ever need to pull out in a certain range, there's this parameters that make sense. And finally, there's no commitment. You can add more in as you start to believe into it in a way that can finally have it so that you're buying that beach house and that dream of everything you wanted 3 years from now. What do you feel you wanna do now? That's sort of the flow, the
That's great.
conversation. It feels like their idea.
Yeah, and it does. And you mentioned, and you just mentioned it just now. And then we've talked about it briefly. So, like one, you just mentioned this idea of a flow, and so it sounds like, which is great. The vivid framework gives you almost like a idea of, I mean, an ability to not sound like a scripted robot. You're going frameworks instead of scripts, which is great.
Yep.
But then it also allows you to, because I think you've said before, as soon as people feel like they're being convinced, they start to push back. And so the vivid framework helps you to be able, you specifically, to be able to teach someone how to walk the line between influence and pressure with a framework instead of a script. And do you feel like, I mean, I feel like that's the case there, but why do you feel like a framework is better than a script in accomplishing that?
There will always be variability that gets brought up that a script won't be able to capture. And because I can make a script for myself because I understand the nuance of when something will change and I need to change and I can skip that line. I believe in frameworks because I'm teaching it. The problem is, since I am first and foremost a sales trainer who has to train other people, I want to make sure I am training in a way that regardless of what is said, the person has something they can do to manage it. And if you rely on memorization of scripts or reading a script, it doesn't work. First off, reading a script, most people don't have the ability to read and then sound spontaneous and normal. Most people lack in some way, shape, or form when they do that. And so the other level is memorization, which then still breaks when the memorization of what you say at what time doesn't align with what you heard. So I'd much rather have people memorize a framework of what emotionally to move someone through based on what you've heard and what you can say next. Maybe memorize a couple things within each section of the framework so you have go-to ways so you're not going from scratch, but it's not a script. So my one of my favorite questions is like, what do you feel is stopping you from reaching those goals, or maybe what's holding you back from making a real attempt? Right? It's one of my favorite questions. It's written out, it's planned. I can't ask it every time. Like, I can't use that in every single conversation because maybe they just tell me, "Here's my challenges, and here's why I'm not making an attempt." Well, I can't ask that question then because I already answered the question. To me, a script is always limited because it's a best case scenario, and sales is human focused. It will never be best case. There will always be variability, and so the framework has variability built in the way to move someone through that still works. So that's why I love it and why I train on it. And with capital raising, it's the exact same thing. Especially, you'll get people posturing, you'll get people trying to intentionally disrupt you. You were mentioning the pitch anything, people trying to take frame. All that stuff is going to happen when real money is on the table. And so, if you are reliant on scripts, you're always at a disadvantage because the disruption will always be more impactful on a script than a framework. And if you're just winging it, even a bad process is better than no process at all.
Well,
So to
that's good.
me, having a good process, having a good framework is the best way to set yourself up for optimal success.
Oh, that's good, man. And it makes me think too, because when you're in a script and you're trying to keep the conversation in the script, that's when it gets pushy because you're trying to come back and like instead of naturally trying to control the conversation, you're forcing control over the conversation within the parameters of a script. It just doesn't make any sense.
It's
So
the difference of being a guide in a rainforest or having someone on an amusement park ride. Like, one thing's always on a track, it
mm,
has to go this way, or like,
yeah,
"Oh, yeah, you wanna go look at the stuff over there? We can, we'll return. I know where we have to go, and we can go off course a little bit as long as we're staying in the same general area." The
yeah.
guides
Even if
take
you're like,
someone. Yes.
that's what
Yeah,
it's like.
it exactly. Yeah.
Um,
You're not pulled and jerked in a way that feels unnatural. You feel like you can go, "Oh, I can go off over here, I can go over here." It's the guy's responsibility to make sure you end up home at the end of it. You end up with the decision. But they have flexibility, like, "Yeah, we can go off trail a little bit here, just not too far," rather than going, "No, this is the track." And once you're off, I'm like, "But let me ask you this," and they do all these corny sales stuff to try and get you back on track, rather than just letting it happen naturally because they have the confidence with a framework instead of the reliance of a script.
Yeah, that's good. Now, this final segment of what we're going to talk about, one, I think it's something that I'm extremely passionate about, and I feel it from you as well. And I think you guys are leading the way in this. And so, this podcast is called Funds on Fire. And typically, I ask people, "Hey, what about your fund right now is firing you up? Like, what's got you fired up going into this next season?" And for you, I would love to hear what's got you fired up and what you're doing. One in like your sales organization, and then what you're able to provide for other people that's really got you fired up and I mean, I guess just to give it a little bit of a hint and like specifically in the AI space, just because I think
Yeah.
that's such a huge space right now that this is as in a very archaic fund industry doesn't explore at like they should, right? Like what's got you really fired up right now?
We are trying to build for companies the ability to have a self-managing sales team. You're doing that with the use of AI. We can't manage your team for you, but we can automate training, onboarding, recruiting, follow-up, and accountability in a way where you just have to basically show up from time to time and do what the AI tells you to do as the manager and leader. And it does most of the training and hand holding and scoring and guiding and all of that for you. Beyond excited for what we are doing with AI. For those who are listening who don't have sales teams, they're just like, "I just have funds." If you have a conversation, it will lose some of the nuance of a pitch for a bunch of people. But if you had a conversation with someone about trying to raise capital and you recorded it, you could submit the recording for free. We'll review it for you. The AI will understand a one-on-one conversation where you had the goal of trying to raise capital. It could understand that now for free. If you want to go to objectionproof.ai, just that website, you can submit either the recording or a transcript of that recording, and it will gauge it for free in a score on our 10 categories of what we think makes the most sense in terms of effective persuasion or creating self-persuasion. Like creating it so that it feels like
Yeah.
they persuaded themselves. It'll understand that in in a conversational space. And so what we're going to do with AI is just it's monumental. We're rebranding everything under objection proof. The AI thing we think is the single biggest momentum shifter in terms of all sales industries going forward.
No
And
doubt.
part of the reason we're different because there are other tools. Like I use Gong at a past company when I was in that tech company. But that and most of these other things are data first. They're tools built by engineers and tech nerds to then look at the data to give advice. Our differentiator is that because in sales, a lot of people get deals, get sales, raise capital in spite of what they did, not
Mm,
because of it.
that's
And
good.
so most data would require so much data, most of these tools, to actually figure out what was effective and what wasn't, what was actually the best practice in terms of giving advice for the future, because you got the deal even though you did something suboptimally. And so because we are setting the parameters of what we actually think is best practices and then adding data to that to tweak it, but we're starting on the 10-yard line. We don't have to start all the way at the back like these others do, building from scratch, sifting through crappy questions and bad personalities and poor objection handling to then have the AI determine what works. We're setting the parameters from the get-go and using data from there to actually inform it to be even more precise. So it understands nuances around the person you're talking to if they're getting emotional. Like if they're at when they're in an emotional state, if you should be asking for the decision. Our AI understands all of that in a way that I know no other tool does, and it gives advice on how to do stuff in the future.
And it's incredible. I can attest to it. So we use it in our real estate company, and man, it is incredible. I love it now because like I have recordings and calls that I did last year, and now I have contests with my employees like who can beat my score. And so it's really cool because one, we're competitive, and so I'm like nobody could beat me. I mean, good luck, good try, you know. And so like I try to get them like they've got we were challenging each other, but you also have really cool features that show which criteria in a sales conversation are they growing in over time. You've got like really cool line graphs that show here's how they've progressed or they've gone backwards in this, or like yes this person is like, so like if we're training a new salesperson, you even have things that help us to understand if this new salesperson is ready to actually be on live calls. And you've got role playing bots that are emotional. It's you guys have done it extremely well, and the fact that you have free access to it at a certain level is incredible and awesome, and I would highly suggest people go and check it out.
Appreciate that. What we're gonna be adding to it is unbelievable. Like, we're talking about fundraising, we'll probably add role play bots where you can practice a pitch. Like, you can practice pitch for different types of people and giving different levels of resistance and questions. And then
You
you'll get
should.
scored based on that. When talking about your sales team, like, hey, here's how they did over the last 30 days. We're gonna add you press a button, "Hey, based on this data of how they've done the last 30 days, here are the 5 bots they should role play with. They need to get above these
That's
category of
crazy.
these bots, get them back on track." We're gonna have all of that so it has a self-contained system for not just figuring out what to do, where you went wrong, and telling you how to fix it, but also being able to practice and experience fixing it. And other things too, like this is one of the things that blew my mind because this wasn't even an intention. This happened by accident. The AI is this good. We had it where we sold someone on a program as a new salesperson for us, and he sold someone on a program and we collected the full amount up front and all this stuff, but they canceled after like 6 days. And I went back and looked at the score and asked AI about the cancellation. And it was like, oh yeah, it makes perfect sense he canceled with how that he was sold on the salesperson's energy, on the
Mm.
salesperson's charisma, which has them go, "Yeah, okay, I guess I'll do this." The problem is, like, if everything lines up
Buyers remorse.
perfectly, that person won't cancel, but it's a high risk prospect because
Yeah.
of how they were sold. If we can have it we're gonna have additional things where it's like, "Hey," for businesses, imagine a rating between, like, I don't know, 5% and 80% of cancellation within the first 60 days. It's like, if you could see that for customer success after someone's sold, like, by how they were sold, that this person needs more attention than this person because of how they were sold and have that at scale, what we're gonna have for organizations, just no one is gonna be able to compete with us, both in terms of the actual sales side and also internal stuff. How to lead people, how to have the conversation with your salespeople, how to get them better, how to get them to feel like their numbers, their KPIs are not for the company, they're for themselves. They feel like entrepreneurs at the sales company in pursuit of their own goals instead of simply trying to sell for the
Yep.
company. We can have that all that
That's crazy.
built out and have AI automate the accountability.
Which makes it so much easier because like I think of as a sales, so I sat in the sales seat for a while. And then as I now have to hire new people so I can work on my business rather than in my business, being a sales manager is a whole different beast than actually like being the salesperson. And but when you have to be in the sales manager seat, it's hard because then you have to learn a whole new set of skills. You have to learn a whole new, you have to study it. I mean, I have to study it. I have to dissect it and figure out how to be the best sales manager that I can. And I still feel like I'm failing. So it's really nice to have a guide as a sales manager to help me with my team. It's incredible.
Most companies make the mistake. They either recruit their top salesperson, so they lose that revenue, and
Mhm.
what made that skill set is not the same as leadership. It's different types of communication, being solipsistically oriented to serve yourself and get the deal done, and then coaching salespeople when they're going through a bad week. It's a very different skill set.
Mhm.
And then they either make that mistake or they hire externally, which puts all these things at risk. Maybe the salespeople don't like the new person, they don't understand the process. There's always these challenges with either hiring externally or recruiting someone from within. If you can have an AI that scores every single call, tells the salesperson the sales manager what to listen for, and in fact, what based on the data, what to say to the salesperson to get them to improve, it makes that role so much easier to hire for. You just have to follow someone who follows the instructions of the AI. You don't need a skilled salesperson who's not selling, because that's how most people do it. Hey, I got to get a really skilled salesperson and then have them not selling anymore. And it's this wee challenge in all
No,
companies in every
it's tough.
single possible industry. We will alleviate that. You just got to hire someone who can have authority over the team, but then just follows the AI instructions. The AI tells them what to do. They don't have to have the nuance and understanding. Or if they do, it actually teaches them how to deliver the message so that people of different abilities and levels will also resonate. Because the top salesperson often doesn't know how to give advice because it came more easy for them.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, man, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for being on and giving just like a ton of value. We definitely are going to do something together soon so we can make sure that we help a ton of people in this space because I think this is a huge need in the capital raising space. But I also appreciate you just coming on here and giving a ton of value. So thank you, man. Where can people find you? Where can they come and reach out to you if they want your help with their teams or just want to learn more?
So if you want help with AI, objectionproof.ai is a great site to go to. If you want to reach out to me personally, Instagram is probably the best place to find me. I'm at Vivid Selling. That's just the easiest place to probably get a hold of me quickly, just directly. I actually still check that via email. It goes through my assistant and all that stuff. So if you
Nice.
guys are
Yeah.
trying to actually reach out to me for anything, my Instagram is the easiest place at Vivid Selling.
Nice, cool. Well, we'll make sure that they see you, and I'll put it in the notes, and then I'll also add objectionproof.ai into the notes as well, so people can upload their calls in there and get some instant feedback because it's really cool. Thank you so much, Ian. I appreciate you being on. I'm excited to chop it up again soon, and I appreciate who you are and what you do.
It's been a pleasure, Devin.
Wow, I hope you enjoyed that. I have a quick favor. If you've been enjoying the show, there's one simple way you can support us, and it's by hitting that follow button or that subscribe button on the app you're listening to. I want to level this podcast up in every single way possible, bringing you more value, incredible content and guests, and new strategies. Following the show and leaving a quick review goes a really long way in helping us to grow and continue to deliver top tier content. It's the only free thing I'll ever ask you to do, and it makes a bigger impact than I can possibly put into words. So thank you for being a part of this journey, and I'll definitely catch you on the next episode. To great success and greater impact. Peace.